You can feel it, can't you? They like you, but something feels off. They praise you, chase you, obsess over you, but deep down you know they don't really see you. Because when someone falls in love with a fantasy version of you, not the real, living, breathing, messy human you actually are, it can feel flattering at first, until you realize you're just playing a role in someone else's movie. So if you're tired of performing just to be loved, this video is for you. Here are the undeniable signs someone is in love with the version of you they've built in their head. Number 1, they fall fast, but not deep. They get attached quickly. You barely had a real conversation, but they're already calling you perfect, saying you're everything they've ever wanted. It might feel like love, but often it's not. According to psychologists, this is called idealization. When someone projects their hopes, unmet needs, or fantasies onto another person, especially in the early stages of attraction. It's not that they're seeing you clearly. They're seeing what they want you to be. In fact, studies on attachment styles show that people with anxious or avoidant tendencies are more likely to fall quickly and intensely, but struggle with emotional depth over time. They crave closeness, but don't know how to build it in a stable, grounded way. So when someone says you're perfect too soon, what they're really falling for is their idea of you, not the full, complex, beautifully imperfect human you actually are. Number 2, they admire you, but don't really know you. They notice your smile, your energy, your talent, but they never see your fears, your doubts, the thoughts that keep you up at night. It's like they're admiring you from the outside without ever stepping in. They're tuned into your presentation, but not your true self. This is described as surface level validation, when someone connects with your outward traits but avoids emotional depth. It often happens in relationships fueled by infatuation rather than authentic intimacy. True connection only happens when we allow ourselves to be fully seen, including the parts we think will make others turn away. But with fantasy, you don't feel seen, just observed, admired, and not understood. Slowly, you start to adjust. You smile more, speak less, filter your truth, not because you're being fake, but because deep down you're afraid that showing your real self might ruin the version of you they've fallen for. 3, they praise you for traits that aren't fully you. You're so easygoing, you're always so positive, you're so low maintenance, but deep down, you know that's not always true. Sometimes you're overwhelmed, sometimes you overthink, sometimes you need more than you let on. It sounds like praise, but it feels like pressure, because when someone only highlights the parts of you that are convenient, agreeable, or undemanding, you start to wonder, do they actually see me? Or just the version so easy to love? According to object relations theory, people who idealize often struggle to hold both the good and the hard parts of someone at the same time. So when you stop being effortless, when you need reassurance, boundaries, or real support, you may notice the shift. Not because you did anything wrong, and it's not your fault. That's just the cost of being placed on a pedestal. Eventually, you either fall off it or lose yourself trying to stay up there. Number 4, you hide your needs to stay lovable. You want to be honest, to say what you need, to show what hurts, but something holds you back because deep down you sense it. The moment you become too much, too emotional, too real, you might ruin the image they've created, and with it, the affection they're giving you. So you shrink. You smooth over your feelings. You smile through discomfort. You fall into what's called conditional acceptance. And over time, it chips away at your sense of safety. According to Dr. Gabor Mate, many of us learn early on to trade authenticity for attachment. We hide our needs to keep our relationships, but in doing so, we slowly abandon ourselves, and that's not love. That is survival. Number 5, you feel adored, but not understood. This is the loneliest part. On the outside, everything looks perfect. They're complimenting you, they admire you, they say all the right things, but on the inside, something feels hollow. Because being adored isn't the same as being understood. You're getting attention, but not attunement. Affection, but not intimacy. What they love is the highlight reel version of you, the shiny surface. But who's loving the parts of you that aren't as polished? The self-doubt, the past pain, the messy, complicated truth of who you are, which is beautiful. So here's the truth. Real connection begins when you feel safe enough to be known, not just praised. But in fantasy love, you're not really known, you're admired from a distance. And even in the middle of attention, you can feel completely alone. Let's jump on to number 6. The moment you grow, they pull away. Maybe you start speaking up, setting boundaries, healing, becoming more you, and then something shifts. They pull back. They're not as affectionate, not as invested. Why? Because growth breaks the illusion. When someone falls in love with a fantasy, they're not prepared for evolution. They fell for the version of you that stayed quiet, agreeable, easy to manage, but healing changes your voice. Growth changes your energy, and suddenly you're not as easy to define or control. Okay, so psychologically, this often threatens people who rely on idealized images to feel secure. When we grow, we force the other person to either adapt to the real relationship or retreat into the fantasy they once clung to. And those who loved the role you played may not know how to love the person you're becoming. But that's not a failure on your part. It's a sign that you're outgrowing the cage someone mistook for connection. And if any of this hit close to home, you're not asking for too much by wanting to be seen. You're asking for something real, something mutual, something that doesn't just admire you from a distance, but chooses you fully. Remember, the right people won't fall in love with a fantasy of you. They'll fall in love with your full, beautiful story. The light and the shadow. You don't need to perform to be loved. You just need to be you and wait for the kind of love that can meet you there. If you enjoyed this video, please support us by liking and leaving your thoughts in the comments. And if you ever experienced a fantasized love, we'd love to hear your story. Let's keep the conversation going in the comment section. See you later.